Maybe just to talk about the CFDM, the institution where I'm working. We are leading to a state diploma of music teacher. In these institutions, I am in charge of ICT, and I'm doing research. And I am a trainer in a particular program, which is the lifelong learning program, because we are in front of students that are 40 years old average, already in the job. It's an hybrid program. We have time in presence and we have time on distance. So that's part of my job too, because I'm working on what's going on with this distance and all those IT tools. When we are talking about digital things, I think we are talking about broad things. We are digital for a long time now, because we are using emails, for example, since a long time ago now. We are doing administrative tasks with these tools. We are communicating with all of those tools. So I think before COVID crisis, we were already there. And another thing important to say that in the artistic field, technology is part of the artistic field since a long time now. It's not new tools. So music history is linked to the technical progress, and digital tools have always been used by the artist to discover new landscape, to discover new kind of sounds. So it's not new, and it's inherent to the way we are making music, to the way we are producing, we are broadcasting. I think COVID crisis has been an amplifier of all this. Maybe at some point a discovery for some teachers, but it's a good thing, even if it was in a crisis moment. So maybe we have to think about it. It was not a good time, but it was a time when we make some discovery. And I think that's why I'm saying it's not a new thing, but because of crisis, I think we have open eyes on it in a different way. First of all, it was a crisis and nobody was prepared for it. It was a moment when we have tried to do things with those tools. Sometimes it was a success, sometimes it was a bad moment, but we can say that we didn't discover online learning and online teaching because of the COVID crisis. Online teaching and distance learning, it's an old thing too. In France, for example, you can look at the CNED, le Centre National de l'Enseignement à Distance, which is born during the Second World War. It's an institution which makes a lot of research on distance learning, on what it means to be in distance. They are publishing a scientific journal named Distance et Médiation des Savoirs. It's really interesting to read all this research because it's not new. But what we can say is that most of the time, distance learning, it's a pre-program teaching. And even if distance learning have been following the technological progress, it was correspondence, then telephone, then Minitel, then CD-ROM, and now internet, we take time to build a program, to make learnings and to teach. We didn't have that time. So we didn't do distance learning. We do maybe emergency teaching or emergency learning, I don't know, but some researcher have said it. I'm not, it's not my ideas, but I totally agree with that. It was not a method of distance learning. We have done what we could do during this period. This is what happened during the COVID crisis. Then, what was the most big changes for us, it was the absence of presence, which it's not used for us. It's not part of our usual methods. We are in front of our students. We are with them. And maybe it was the most difficult. And the other difficulties we had was about synchronous, making music synchronously online. It was really hard, most of the time because of technical problems. But it's possible to do online music synchronous. We know the technology and we can do it. But during the COVID crisis, we was all under-equipped to do it, the teachers and the learners. So it was quite impossible. And most of the time too, those kind of tools were unknown from the teachers. So it was a technical difficulties and an unknown about those kind of tools. When I'm asking the teachers to talk about this period, I'm asking them two things. What's the best memory? What was a success during this period? I'm sure you have maybe just one, but only one success. And what was the bad memory? And I will tell you about the good memory of this period. First of all, they all talked about the awareness of the condition of practicing music at home for their learners. Question of materials, question of space to practice, question of consideration from the family. And I think it's really interesting because maybe it helps deconstructing the image of the ideal pupils we all have in mind. It doesn't exist, this ideal pupils. So maybe it transforms this image and the consideration the teacher have concerning homework. Maybe for some pupils, homework is hard. And it will transform maybe later the way we are dealing with that kind of consideration. The second ideas that come from the teachers were about the way we are talking about music, about notion, about our materials, our content. They had to change the words. They had to change the way they will expose the theoretical aspect of music and so on. And that's really interesting. Because we were not in front of our pupils, we had to change the way we are explaining things. And that's also, for me, an interesting point for further discussion or further modification in our job. Most of them also explained that because the sound was awful, it was a big problem with online courses, they had to do something else. They had to work on other parameters of music. And most of the time, things that we don't take time during courses that are not so important in the curriculum. And also, that's a good point because it's interesting to look at how we talk about musical culture or rhythm or metrics, things like that. I think it's important to say that most of teachers have discovered a lot of tools. So that's a good point too. Even if some people are saying there are too much tools. Yes, you're right, too much. But maybe in the too much you have found one interesting. So that's a good point. And they also discover the power of recording and the power of the image, because it's really pedagogical tools and reflexive tools for pupils, because you can listen to you can come back to yourself, even if it's not always easy to watch yourself and to listen to yourself. So we have to work on it because it was sometimes hard for students. and also for teachers, to be honest. So, but it became obvious that it's an interesting tool, an interesting pedagogical tools. I don't know if there is an impact. I like to say that those tools are additional tools in the teacher's bag. And if we say that the crisis is behind us and we are back to normal life, I think it's important to imagine tools like some new things to use for a concrete purpose. And I think it's important that the teachers are convinced about the use of the tools because it's linked to an objective for them, not because we are telling them to say, oh, you must use this tool. No, you use the tool because you think you can do interesting things for your learners, to manipulate sounds, to create sounds, to understand things. So tools are linked to your pedagogical objective, linked to your learning objectives. For me, it's the only way we can find the sense to all this. That's why the COVID crisis was a crisis, because we didn't have the choice. And I want now people to have the choice, because I don't want the teacher to understand that, as we always said, oh, you have to live with your time. Now the time is digitization. So if you don't use digital tools, you are an old-fashioned guy or things like. I don't think it's a good manner to imagine the transformation. You have to be interested by those tools because you think you can do things linked to your objectives. It's a tool, just a tool. I am part of a working group, a European working group on digitization. We always say that educational technology dives you to the core of pedagogy, driven by technology, inspired by pedagogy. I think it's really interesting to keep in mind those kind of sentences, because for me, that's the path for maybe transformation, to help us doing things differently, not to do the same thing with digital tools. I'm not sure it's interesting, but to imagine that because of those tools, you can do differently. And this difference, it can be interesting. During my research, I found the work of Mireille Bétrancourt, and I was really interested by what she said concerning what we can do with IT in the classroom. She began with 4 functions that are really supported by the new technology. She mentions the storage, the reuse of the content, the visualization. Because of IT, we can visualize things differently and in a broad sense, in fact. The automatic processing, because a computer are a big calculator, and communication and collaboration. And because of those 4 functions, she described 4 uses of tools in educational process. She said that we can use the tools for training, for rehearsal, because most of time the computer or the tools give us immediate feedback, and it helps to say, okay, I was wrong, okay, oh yeah, I'm doing right. And you can train at home and with the teacher too in the classroom, but we can use the tools in that kind of exercises or training or memorization, all the things that can need an immediate feedback. And there are a lot of tools that can help us doing that. The second uses is the researching. Because of the internet nowadays, we have access to a tremendous database on music, on different practices, on different cultures. So it's amazing, and it's enriching the learning process. So how we can use it, how we can base our learnings maybe on that tools, helping students find things, search things, um, to make critical thinkings, and also on. So we can use this database to enhance learnings about music. The third use are about creation, production. Because of those tools, we can create our own music. We can create our ideas, because learners can use a recorder or a score editor to write his own ideas, his own music in his head. So it's really amazing to use those tools to give power to the students to make their own music. So use oriented on creation and multimedia creation. So you can use image, sound, and so on. And the last one, the fourth one, based on the collaboration, the communication, the exchange. And I think it's also part of those tools nowadays. What we have discovered, maybe during the COVID crisis, is that, yes, that's really great tools for communication. That's great tools for exchanging ideas, things. Maybe we have changed the way we are looking at the geek guys with the big glasses, all alone in front of his screen. So I think things has changed concerning that, and we can collaborate through those tools too, and that's interesting also for music education. Concerning the risks, I think there are risks to this. Maybe the first one nowadays, because the presence is back and we are back to the class. Those tools must exist in the class, because we can't use tools just for home, because we don't know how the students are equipped. And there is a problem of digital divide. So we need to focus on that. As a teacher, if we want to use the tools, we have to think about it. And I think we have to be aware that it's not true that we are all equipped as equal. So we have to keep in mind that maybe we will be able to do things in the classroom, but the student won't be able to pursue it at home. There is an environmental issue, because there is a question, an ecologic question behind the IT. And I think we have to learn how to use it in a greener way. And we have some literature on that. So we have some ideas. We can follow some good advice about the way we are using tools. I think another risk is if the teachers are not okay to use digital tools and they are forced to do it, I think it can be a bad thing for the learning situation. So we need to accompany, to train, to help people to get involved in it. For me, this question must be linked to the skills of the musician nowadays. If we say that a music school must train an amateur musician, what are the skills he needs to discover, to engage through his curriculum? What I propose is to say that maybe for all musicians nowadays, we need to know how to record ourselves. Recording is the basis for me of digital tools that we can put in the hand of our students. and recording and designing sound. What do we do with these records? How we build a song? How we build the pieces? We put our ideas in a computer to help us build the song. I think another tool that must be interesting nowadays is to edit scores on an interface, and not only with the pen and the paper, because this digital interface transform the way we are creating. We know it. So we have to put those tools in the hand of the pupils, because it's for them now to manipulate and to use it for their own practices. And as Mireille Betrancourt explained, I think we have a big role to play as a teacher in the discovery of music culture and so on, because those tools are denormalized the way we are listening to music. It can be a risk, and it is a risk, and we know it too. And so, because we have access to a lot of other things, I think we can prescribe some content, some things to, yeah, go listen to this one and tell me what you think about it. And the pupils, the student can bring us some content, and we have to bring them other contents. I think it's part of the how we can create a big culture of it's part of the musician to have an idea of different style, an idea of different aesthetic, and so on. And I think we all need helps concerning that question, because it's hard to find things nowadays on the internet. So maybe we can work together to build something coherent. Learning is changing because of all those new tools, and we know it. But the learning experience is most of the time global. We know that we just don't learn music only in the music school. We know that we are learning in a lot of different contexts, and in a lot of different situations, and with a lot of different people. And because of IT, this kind of non-formal, informal situation becomes bigger, because it's worldwide, in fact. So yesterday, when we were learning with our peer, it was the neighbor, it was a parents, a member of the family. Now it can be people who's living in Brasilia. So that's part of the changement, and it's really exciting to know that we can learn from someone who is far away from us. But it also changes in a different way. Now learning is mobile. We have access to all this in the pocket. It's amazing, because we can create, we can take the smartphone, take a picture, record a sound, send it to our friends. We can look to a video. So it's amazing what we can do because of mobility, and it's part of learning, because each time we are doing something, maybe we can learn from each other, or and so on. It's global, it's mobile, it's web-based, it's visual. But there is something interesting in the visualization of things, and in music in particular, because about the physical elements of music, of acoustic sound, we can visualize it. And for me, who didn't understand anything about physical notion, sometimes I can understand things because I see what it's about, what we are talking about. Seeing a decay, a sustain, things like that, because it's visual. It helps me understanding what's happening concerning the sound. And because of visual, we can explain things in another way, just words. We can use sound, we can use image, we can combine it. So it's really interesting to use all these methods to structure a content. Maybe IT are helping some ancestor methods. I'll explain what I said. We are saying that learning now is flipped because of the flipped classroom, but IT didn't invent the flipped classroom. It was there before, because the absence of the teacher in the classroom, it's not new. We can go out of the classroom and leave the students alone, and it's distance learning. So it's really interesting to look at all those things, because of COVID crisis and because of IT, we are looking at some things that people in the pedagogical science explained us a long time ago. And that's really interesting to look at what's happening. But now we are talking about flipped classroom. Okay, let's do it, because IT helps to do it easily, maybe, but it's not. It's not the internet who build the flipped classroom. It's not correct to say that. Another things concerning learning, there is a big movement of the MOOC, the massive open online courses, and I think it's also linked to the history of the information science, because at the beginning, the aim was to build an intelligent society, because we can exchange knowledge and things like that with the help of this new technology. And I think the MOOC are part of this utopia, to say that because of these tools, we can help people to get access to knowledge, to get access to lessons, to a big university. And even if it's not as brilliant as it's wanted to be, because we know that the MOOC didn't reach the goal of a new public, because those who are following the MOOC are you and I, those who are already engaged in higher education, those who are intellectually equipped to follow an Harvard lessons, for example. So we knew all this, but I think the utopia of the beginning is great, even if it's not as easy as it seems, in fact. But learning can be open and massive nowadays, and all those things. I worked with Mati Ruipo in my European working group. We explain all those changements in the learning process, and what I've said is based on his analysis. Yes, I don't think the COVID crisis transform anything. I think it helps us open eyes on what's going on about digitization. Really, I really think it was a discovery for the world. What we can also say is what we have been through during 2 years in the artistic field, for example. Will it continue? Will it go on this way? I think that's the big question, for example. Do people will come back to broadcasting live? All those questions, I don't know. I can't read in the future, but that's part of the question, I think, because we maybe we put IT at a level that was not maybe it had been very fast. In fact, it was an acceleration. Maybe it will be the end, but because of the crisis, we are now there, and that's maybe the big question. But honestly, concerning learning, as I always said, distance learning in music is not new. We already have that kind of situation. Some people ask me for a virtual reality or AE. For instance, I don't have any example of use of it. in the conservatory through, but maybe it will arrive, or a new literary, new interface. It's still really small in the conservatory. Most of the time, it's a small department, and I'm not sure the COVID crisis has transformed it. Wow, it will become the center of the conservatory. I'm not sure. As I said, I'm not sure digital tools transform the role or the position of the teacher, but because we knew things about learning theories, we learn with others, we learn through others, and the teacher's role is there to construct the framework, the situation in which all the students will develop learnings. This is the role of the teacher. And in fact, the situation are multiple. We can build multiple situations. We have really the power to do this as a teacher. And our role in those situations is multiple too. We embrace different roles during one situation, for example. We can show, we can question, we can explain, we can correct, we can be a resource. So we are guiding, we are all those things. It's part of our role. And I think what I've said, it can be in presence or online or through all the things. I don't think it's changed the role. What is changing, in fact, it's the relationship to knowledge. It has changed because the knowledge is no longer reserved to those who have access. Now access is no longer the problem. So we shift from scarcity to infobesity. So that's why it's really important to build understanding, discernment, links, critical thinkings in all this information. And here is the role. Here is a crucial role for the teacher, for me. Here is the big difference. I will use maybe a citation, a quotation of Yves Citon, who said, educational institutions can no longer be organized around the transmission of content. And I think it's the big changement, because teachers think they are here to transmit content, and maybe it's not still right today, and they have to use the content their student can access to build things, to explain them, to make them manipulate that content to develop learnings. Maybe that's the big change for me, but it's not new because Freinet, the pedagogue, told us this a long time ago. Winnicott, all those guys already said that the students are not empty, and we are not here to fill in them with content. So maybe it's not new too. I don't know. The new skills for the teachers is the understanding of digitization, what's going on through those tools. I think the TPACK model is really interesting concerning the skills of the teachers. The TPACK is for technological, pedagogical, content knowledge. And it explained that maybe nowadays the knowledge required by teachers is three type of knowledge: didactic knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and technological knowledge. So here is the new one. And the model explained that those knowledge must be linked, because if they are still separate, it doesn't help. So you can know all the tools of the world, if you don't link your technological knowledge to the pedagogical and the didactic one, it will not make sense, and maybe it will not help. And that's what is really interesting for me in this model, that we have to build the link between the three of it. As I said before, it's tools, so we have to link it to methods, pedagogical methods, and learning objectives. When we have the three of it, really it can enhance the learning situation. So we have to train the teachers on it, and it's a big program. For my institution, for example, it's part of the reflection of the moment to go on that digital literacy, and not maybe to show new tools, to explain how it works and what we can do, because I think all the teachers will discover by themselves the tools they need, but we can think about the function. What can we do with the tools? As Myriam Betrancourt said, she's talking about uses, she's talking about functions. I always take the example of when you want to manipulate a picture, most of the time you are trained on Photoshop. You have to use Photoshop to do things. But in fact, Photoshop is not the only tools you can use to manipulate a picture. So it's not the tools which is important, it's the function, what you can do on a picture to transform it in a way you want to transform it. It's the same in the music. So I love talking about tools, but we also can talk about what IT bring us as function. And maybe it's another way to enter in the digital world, to understand what we can do with it. There are a lot of tools that we can try to use for doing music. Most of the time, when I am doing my trainings, I'm using web tools. Why? Because those tools are accessible just with the network, and you don't have to install it on your laptop, and it's low cost, because most of the time it's free. So this is when I'm looking at tools, I'm looking at web tools and open source, because I also think we have to think about what we are doing with those tools, and the tools are not neutral. We know it, and maybe we can try to think about ethical questions behind all this. But it's not always easy to talk about open source, so I'm trying when I can. I think during this period there were a lot of proposals to try for synchronous music. Jamulus was one of the tools that a part of the students and the teacher tried, but Jamulus was one of those who was used because it was based on low equipment. Because in fact, as I said, we know the technology, we can do it, because it depends on your network and on your equipment, a good microphone, a good camera, and so on. And there is a European project called LOLA, for low latency, which is an open source program, but it's based on equipment that represents a cost, and it can be support by institution, but not by pupils. And Jamulus was maybe a way to deal with the equipment of our students. and not the equipment of the institution, because the institutions were not equipped to. In fact, I like to present Soundtrap, BandLab, Soundation, which are DIY online, and because they are online, they are based on collaboration too. So you can collaborate online on the same interface. So it's really interesting because you can manipulate a first DIY, and you can collaborate on the same project with your colleague. So that's really interesting. And you can do the same with editing a platform like Flat or Notfight. You can compose, you can write a score and collaborate on the same score with your colleague. And it's online too. So that's kind of tools I think it's interesting. And each time I show them to the teachers, they say, oh, okay, there is something interesting in this. I understand what you're talking about. Yes, I can do, because it's linked to music. We are doing music with that kind of tool. So you're right, it's important to say, yes, we can do music with IT, definitely. But for training, for example, there are a lot of new tools that are coming up, like Templay, Nomad Play. You can play on the playback, Hearmaster, Meludia to train your ear. You can jamstudio.com. It's a small tools to create a backtrack. So it's really easy to get your backtrack in a few seconds. And then you have some tools that are, most of the time it seems like gadget for the teachers, but not for me, because I think even if it's a little bit gadget or just to have fun, yes, when you have fun you can do things with this. And it can be just a moment in the classroom, just not a big time on it, but you can use it just to make a new way to enter in a notion, a new way to make the student understand what we are talking about. So it can transform the way we are talking about music. So so I love the tools of Google because it helps doing things. And so the Chrome Music Lab, it's interesting to look at it. But you can also look at all the experiments, the art experiment of Google, because they are trying to do things with IT that maybe if you don't use it with your student, go to look at it, just to see what's going on concerning IT, concerning AE, all those things. That's interesting for me. And I love Motion Kit because it's a tool that has been thought for pedagogical situations. So for me, it's amazing that we didn't know it, because it's a new way of dealing with the interface, because it's really visual. It's based on sound, but you can put all your own sound in it. So you can create from you. And it's, for me, it's really an interesting way to deal with sound design and things like that. Maybe it's more specific for certain kind of music, but it's still a good way to explain the transformation in the arts, because today the transversality of the artistic practice is just it has always been. We invent because we meet others and because we collaborate. So artistic field, it's the crossroad of multiple practices, and I think we can maybe use it in the pedagogical, but we can use new tools to go on this stuff. I think we can reach that we will still collaborating on this question. We need it. What was a big changement during the crisis is that the teacher opened the door of the classroom and they explain what they do, and they exchange ideas, they ask questions, they explain the issue, and that was really, really interesting. So we need to go on this, because concerning digitization, we need to build common understanding, common culture on it. And to build it, we need to collaborate, we need to exchange, we need to have time to express ourselves about how we are doing things, what we don't want to do with it, what we don't know how to do with it. And I think that that's the big point for me, and that's the big point in my job. This is my job today, to make people talk about it. To explain the difficulties, to explain the success, to explain the way they are thinking in future about it, because I think we can help people to empower concerning this question. In our European working group, we have 3 keywords: empowerment, integration, and transformation. I think that we are at the level 1. We have to give power to people to understand the tools. When they will understand the tools, maybe they will be able to integrate, and then maybe it will transform the things. But I think the first step is really to empower people. There are so many people who think that it's too complicated, it's not for them. No, I'm too old, I'm finished, it's the end. No, not at all. This is really part of the problem with the digital tools. We always think it's a question of expert, it's a question of specialist, and I think it's not true. We can do a simple thing. We always think about digitization as yes, the VR. No. Recording is digital tools. Using your smartphone to record your students, you are in the digital world. So let's begin in a simple way, and then maybe because we will become aware of what we can do and the sense it can have in our lessons. Then we can go on and build some skills about it. And a lot of things, I really think there is no good practices concerning IT. I think they are just practices linked to a context, linked to a public, linked to a teacher and his learning objectives, and so on. So good practices, maybe it's not the correct. There is no receipts. They are just experience, testimonies, and so on. And we need it, because I don't know who say that, but I think we are stronger all together than alone, always. And this question is still linked to digitization too. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure to discuss with you.